This video is about how to do a value change in watercolor paint from dark to light, or from light to dark. We're going to use the whole paper, and we're just going to draw a simple shape. Again, we're trying to make a simple drawing to begin with. I'm using most of the paper to do this drawing. From the bottom of the page all the way up to the top. On a nice big tree. And it doesn't matter too much how you draw it, as long as you've got space that you can fill in with a paintbrush. I want to be able to paint in here, and I want to be able to paint outside of the tree, so I'm not making it too complicated. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is take this sponge and get it wet by dipping it in my water bucket and wring it out so that the sponge is damp but not dripping wet. That would be too wet. It's not dripping anymore. That's how I want it. And I'm going to get my whole paper wet with the sponge. We know watercolor paint moves where the water is on our paper. This time, instead of using a brush to put all the water down, I am using the sponge to put water all over my paper. It's got to be a clean sponge, and this is one like you might find in the ocean, a real living sponge. So my painting paper is wet now. There's a little shine to it, and I'm ready to start adding paint. So I take my paint set, and I'm going to just use one color this whole painting. I'm just using purple today, or violet. My watercolor set, I'm waking the paint up. I'm starting with a thick brush because we're doing this painting in two steps. The first step is to paint the background, and I'm going to do it dark at the top and light at the bottom. So the top of my painting is going to get a lot of paint on it. You can see how the wet paper is allowing my paint to spread. Because my paper is wet, the paint doesn't make hard edges. It's all smoothly blending together. Now on this side here, I'm ready to get lighter and lighter as I go. So I'm thinning my paint out with water. If there's more water and less paint, then the white of my paper will show up. And that's what we want. We want it to be really light and get darker and darker as it comes up the paper. I'm going to add more purple to the top so that it's even darker up at the top of my painting. Going around the edges of my tree branches to make them really dark at the top. The outside around my tree, that negative space around my tree needs to be really nice and dark at the top. Sometimes I paint with only water on my paintbrush, and I use the paint that's on the paper and spread the color with the water that's on my brush. Now we can let this painting dry for a few minutes, maybe a whole class period. Later, we'll come back and we'll paint from the bottom of the tree to the top, and we'll start really dark, and we will get lighter and lighter as we come to the top. For this last part of my tree, I don't want any more paint on my brush. I'm going to move this wet paint up the branch with water. Here's another spot. I want to get that wet with a little bit of water and pick up the paint on the tip of that branch. Oh, I did a little too much. Here's another spot. I carefully get that wet and then stamp on it a little bit with my paper towel. It gets white again. And that's the goal. We want the tips of this tree branch to be white and the limb to be light purple. It's almost like you're using an eraser. When you get the water on that paint that you didn't mean to put down, you stamp it up a little bit. It's called lifting paint in watercolor. I feel like I took away too much color here and here, so I'm going to add just a little dark purple close to the edge of my branch there.